Hello and welcome. So I've waited on doing this reading of these two charts against the transiting planets for September 17th through the 18th on the lunar eclipse. Honestly, because Mercury was going retrograde and then it stationed, and so I've waited till today, September the 2nd, to do this video so I can clearly think and communicate correctly. This is really important. More important than you can imagine. And this is why I've named the title of this video, Our Fall from Grace. On September 17th is our U.S. constitutional document's birthday. Because this is happening on our Constitution Day, this will affect our Constitution. This is huge. The Declaration of Independence I see as our divorcing from the monarchy, from being controlled and getting, demanding or telling, really, we're going to be independent people. The Constitution is about how we all, our ancestors, came together to create the United States. Because prior to that, they hadn't done that. And this is where they came together to declare how, by combining the states together, how they would operate together. So they established the House of Representatives, they established the House of the Senate, they lined out the responsibilities, the basic, very generic basic duties of the president, etc., etc. Both of these documents hold we the people responsible when our government goes rogue or acts outside of our collective morals, ethics, or against these documents. And so this is why I've called this document, or this video, sorry, Our Fall from Grace. Because since World War II, our government has been breaking the Constitution. They have been breaking the promises of the Declaration of Independence to us. And we have failed as people. We have not held them accountable for their crimes of what they have done. I want to go through this chart with you. Outside of the wheel is the transiting planets for the day. And then the first ring, the orange, the planets in orange, is our Constitution for September 17th. The blue planets in the next ring is our Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. So at the top you'll see the sun, 25 degrees, and you'll see the letter N, 26 degrees. That is that asteroid Niobe, which is falling from grace. Go directly down and you will see the moon, 25 degrees, Neptune retrograde at 28 degrees. As I said in my previous video, for the Declaration of Independence, this eclipse is going to affect our 4th and our 10th house. 4th house being home, and 10th house being about leaders, careers, reputation. For the constitutional chart, it is going to affect our 2nd and 8th. The 2nd is our financial house, and it's about what we value. Often it's mostly referred to as materialistic things, but I have seen it come up over and over again for just literally what we value. The 8th house is about power and control. It's about death. It's about transformation. It is about debt, investments. It's also about other people's money. This also is about psychological issues and trauma. And it is Pandora's box, meaning we don't know everything about it. So we'll start with the lunar eclipse at the bottom. We're going to mostly look at the constitutional natal chart, but I want to bring in some of the things about the declaration so we have a better understanding of how that's going to affect us, because I think that's important. Also, real quick, before I go any further, if you've not seen Lex Friedman's interview with Zink Unger of TYT, I believe it was done last week. It is excellent. You must go watch it. He really has done his research. He's extremely knowledgeable on how our government and when it truly went off the rails of being corrupted. I just know that things started going awry after World War II from listening to my grandparents, as well as some research I've done. Things come up after World War II. President Eisenhower gave us the warning before he left about the military-industrial complex, and we never heed the warning. Both of these documents hold not only our government responsible for their actions of breaking their oath, but it also holds us accountable, because both documents do say in there that not only do we have a duty, but we have a responsibility to hold our government responsible, meaning the people in our government when they act corrupted or do things that are against the oath. Okay, so let's start with the moon at 25 degrees, Neptune retrograding at 28 degrees over our second house of Pisces. So I wanted to give you an example of what it's like to have, so that you have something in your mind to think of when we're talking about someone having their Neptune and moon conjunct in Pisces. And this is Robert Louis Stevenson, who was born in Scotland, November 13th, 1850 at 1:30 p.m. And he was a novelist, poet. He did essays, and he also traveled around writing about what he saw. And some of his famous works of art are Treasure Island, Kidnapped, and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So I found this fascinating, of those stories, if you've ever read them or you watched them in movies, that this is what that Neptune and conjuncting the moon in Pisces of the second house, that's that kind of energy that it brings, that compassion, that interconnectedness. And as you can see, it has a wild imagination in Treasure Island. And then when you look at The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, how it has like this light side, right? Positive side. But then it has this dark, negative side. So I just thought that this was fascinating. And while I was doing this, it was so funny. I have to show you this. I thought, man, he looks like somebody. Oh my God, I know he does. And I was like, holy cow, he looks just like him. Does he not look exactly like Adrian Brody? So I was just curious. Let's go look at Adrian Brody's chart, right? And this was fascinating to me. Going back to Stevenson's chart, I want you to look at his Pluto. It is at 28 degrees of Aries. And remember, Pluto is about reincarnation. It's about death and reincarnation, right? And this is so fascinating. Brody, his sun, is at 25 degrees of Aries. And his Chiron's at 15. Stevenson's Chiron was right conjunct his Pluto. And interestingly, I went and looked this up, but Stevenson died early of a stroke at age 44. And this blew me away. And I was like, I wonder if this is how we can tell about who we were previously. Anyway, I thought it was fascinating. I got the chills on this when I saw it and started thinking about it. And then when I pulled up Adrian Brody's chart, I was like, no way. His sun's at 24 degrees in Aries. Holy cow. And the 8th house. You know, reincarnation. I mean, you just can't make this up. How crazy is that of how much they look exactly alike? So it makes me wonder if we always look like who we want to look like. I find this so fascinating. Okay, so we'll get back to the chart. That kind of gives you an idea of how the moon and Neptune conjunction in Pisces operates. The kind of energy that it operates, the type of action that can come out of it, right? Especially in the second house. The one thing is you have to be careful of is the illusion, escapism that can come with that Neptune. We'll go up to the 8th house, which is the sun at 25 degrees and asteroid Niobe at 26 degrees. And just a real quick little refresher on what Niobe is. So remember, Niobe was a descendant of the gods. She was the granddaughter of Zeus, whose husband had founded the city of Thebes. She was inordinately proud of her heritage and her 14 children. Once, during the annual festival honoring Leto and her children by Zeus, Apollo, and Armedius, Niobe rebuked her fellow citizens, exclaiming that her own fortunes were better than Leto's, and her own children more worthy and greater in number. Leto heard the insult and urged her children to avenge her by killing Niobe's offspring, which they did. Niobe's husband killed himself in grief at the tragedy, and Niobe fled to the wild, where she was transformed into a huge rock that ceaselessly wept tears of remorse. So astrologically, Niobe represents undue pride in one's accomplishments, gifts, heritage, or fortunes, and the fall from grace which often accompanies this. And back to the chart. And so, as you will see, up over the transiting asteroid Niobe and the sun over Virgo is conjunct directly our natal sun of the U.S. Constitution. Now, this also is going to affect, as I had said in my previous video, the U.S. Declaration, or I'm sorry, the Declaration of Independence's Neptune in the 10th house. So let's talk about the 8th house. So this is the sun with conjunct asteroid Niobe. Let's talk about the Virgo energy. It's slow moving because it's Earth. It's mutable, which means it's flexible. The sun in Virgo is often reserved, practical, industrious, analytical, but it can also be discriminating. And it always wants to seek knowledge. So this is kind of interesting. Michael Jackson has a Pisces moon, sun, Virgo in opposition. So that kind of tells you a little bit about how those energies work. Now, of course, they're in different houses, but it gives you an idea of how the moon in Pisces and sun in Virgo operate. The third decan of where our sun is Venus. And so she is a great benefic and will have significant responsibility in kind of conducting and ensuring that fall from grace that is going to happen to us happens in a compassionate way. So I just want to show you real quick, this is what the chart looks like if I was to just throw it with the transiting planets. And as you will see, Venus is at the very top of the chart. So she's going to be the conductor, the leader this day to ensure the energy flows in the way she wants. And as you can see, she's in Libra, which, remember, Libra is about harmony, balance, justice. And so she is up over the 9th house in our constitutional chart, which is about morals, ethics, beliefs. It's also the house of publishing. And again, she is conjunct our natal Neptune here. And so she's going to be the conductor of all the energy of the lunar eclipse, meaning that everything's going to be done with, hopefully, harmony and balance. What she's probably going to judge everything on, because this is a sextile to the lunar eclipse that's happening with the asteroid Niobe and the sun, is she's going to ensure that our leaders, because the sun can represent our leaders, and certainly one would probably say that in this chart, that it certainly represents our leaders, of how they're supposed to conduct themselves. So what she's going to evaluate them on is their ethics, morals, beliefs, philosophy, what they've published. She's also going to judge them on what they've done in far away places, because the ninth house also encompasses foreign places. Now, I just want to make a notation here that in this chart, our Venus of our constitution's at 16 degrees in Virgo. This is important to mention because our Venus in this chart is in fall. And she also does not like to be above the horizon. So what happened, there may be issues with how Venus operates, I guess is what I'm saying, and how this is conducted, how she conducts herself, because our Venus has problems. And what happens when Venus is in fall, or any planets in fall, is they tend to fall in pitfalls. It's not that they can't operate, sometimes they over-operate. So what Venus in Virgo potentially happens is that she falls into a lot of pitfalls. There may be a lot of exposure that happens of a lot of things that our leaders have done that have gotten them into the pitfalls. Better for me to show you in this chart kind of a little bit. I want to talk about the Constitution a little bit here before we go back to the synastry chart. We just, in our natal chart here, had a Mercury return in Virgo. And Mercury is home in Virgo, and he now is going direct. So we do have the energy of Mercury here helping. However, as you can see, it's not going to necessarily be playing in with the lunar eclipse energy that Venus is going to be conducting. It's actually going to be playing with the energy of Mars. And as you can tell, we just had a Mars return. And Mars being in Cancer is also difficult because Mars in Cancer is also in fall. And again, Mars can fall into pitfalls. The one thing that can happen with Mars in fall in Cancer is that it can fall into pitfalls and feel trapped and not get out of the pitfall. Another thing that can often happen with the Mars in Cancer is, as my good astrologer friend says, Austin, on the astrology podcast, it can freak the fuck out. And then I want to show you that we're getting ready to have a Jupiter return. And Jupiter is in detriment here and also hates being below the horizon. And so Jupiter may also have problems here, expanding, having optimism. It also could fall into some pretty big pitfalls. Mercury is actually in a quintile to Mars, which is good because that means the energy flows easy, but it may be difficult for Mars to operate, again, because Mars is in fall. Now, what do I mean? Because you're probably thinking, you're talking about the Constitution, what are you talking about? Again, you may not know this, but as a government employee or an elected official, you must take an oath to the Constitution to uphold it. Our leaders, this could explain why they potentially didn't uphold it and why they abused it. Naomi's gonna, this lunar eclipse, because of Niobe, and the eclipse in particular, because it is a full moon and not a new moon, is going to expose. And this is the 6th house. This is about daily routines, co-workers, subordinates. This could officially, by the time this, it could be 4 years, everyone that has broken their oath to the Constitution may fall from grace. Or it could just be that our entire country falls from grace and we have to develop a new system. I don't know. The other one here I wanted to talk about was Saturn, because Saturn does not like to be below the horizon in a day chart, so it can have problems operating properly as well. Even though it's home in Aquarius, it can get stuck, make things for itself challenging more than it should be, put up more boundaries than are necessary, more restrictions. And then I just want to, right here, the moon's at 7 degrees in Sag. And the moon does not like to be above the horizon in a day chart. So it also could have difficulties operating. So, it's about how we express ourselves emotionally. And this is the 11th house, which is friends, groups, group memberships, social media, internet, hopes and dreams. So, what is going to play out in this eclipse that Venus is going to orchestrate is or what's in red. The interesting thing, I just want to note this, is that you can see the IC and the AC are almost conjunct. They're in a very tight orb, and they're almost conjunct. And so when this happens, when we throw a chart, that means a drastic change. The MC and the AC, the ascendant, are also in a really tight orb of conjunction. So there's going to be massive changes here. Because of this eclipse, there is another change coming. There is another change coming in leaderships. And then the descendant and the IC is also being in a close conjunct. And so there's going to be a huge change of the IC to the DC. And then up here we've got the MC and the descendant. Again, there's going to be this huge change. The main lesson that's going to happen is going to be solar return lesson that is tied in with this lunar eclipse. I just foresee that this energy is going to go on for at least a year, if not up to 4 years. We right now of the U.S. Constitution are in our 10th house. Well, on our birthday. And again, because this is tied into we the people, all of us, this is a lesson for all of us, not just our leaders. It does show there's going to be consequences not only for our leaders, but as we know, there will be a trickle-down effect. Because this eclipse is hitting our second house of finances, and it is hitting the 7th house of partnerships, as well as the 8th house of other people's money. What I could foresee, and this is just a hypothesis, is, as we know, some time ago, we stopped having our partners around the world giving us gold bars to back up the dollar. Instead, we had them purchasing bonds. What could happen, they could cash in those bonds, which, considering the debt we're in right now, not only here in America, the deficit, but what we owe other countries, this could significantly impact our economy, because this is a fall from grace is happening over other people's money and our debt. So I'm just telling you because I want you to be prepared. We have a very profound lesson to learn, all of us, in this eclipse and solar return. I do see where there's going to be a lot of more information come out that we don't know and that will be surprising and shocking to us. We have quite a solar return coming for our Constitution. I would encourage all of you to go read the Constitution. I don't know if we stay standard as the United States or if we start self-governing, because that is an Aquarian, that is part of the age of Aquarian, is self-governance. We may get to a point where we decide we don't need leaders. So anyway, I'm not going to dive too deep into this. I just wanted to bring it up that we do have a huge event coming with this solar eclipse, or I'm sorry, lunar eclipse on our solar return for our Constitution. So we're going to have to stand up together and come together. We need each other. One last thing. This is our solar return chart that will happen on September 17th. And this is what it looks like. And remember, in our natal chart, we're in the 10th house perfection. So you can't look at this one and say this is the 10th house. The interesting thing I wanted to say right here on our solar return chart is we have a kite. It's a special, unique aspect that's happening in the chart. It's all easy flowing energy because it's blue, as you can see. You can see where it's pointed. The tip of the top of the kite is pointed up to Neptune, with the bottom of the kite pointed down to the sun and the asteroid Niobe. Basically here with the kite, what it is at the bottom, the tail of the kite, it works like the tension, okay? So the tension in our solar return chart, in order to perform this kite for the year, will be our sun and that asteroid Niobe. Today is the 3rd of September, and I hadn't uploaded my video yet because my guides actually told me to hold off, and now I know why. There were some things they told me to look for our collapse. One thing is our military, and this story was published today by the New Yorker, which is all about the Iraq massacre that our Marines did back in 2005. This is explosive news, you guys. So hold on to there's a couple other things I want to show you. This was on the news last night on ABC News that I captured, and there were a couple of U.S. Marines that were out walking around in Turkey that were attacked by a mob, and they basically are telling us to go home and that we are responsible for the genocide in Gaza. This came out in the New York Times this morning. Well, I guess actually it was this afternoon. I guess it was just here an hour ago, actually. And we apparently have a lot of operations going on over there in Iraq, and my understanding is a couple of our soldiers have been injured or killed, and things are really heating up over there. So the last thing I want to show you is this morning, James O'Brien on the LBC. It's a Great Britain independent news outlet, and they're very honest, and they get to they do investigative reporting. They have reporters in Israel reporting on that were reporting this weekend on the protests. It's a really great 10-minute interview if you want to go watch it. But I just want to let you know that apparently last night Great Britain said they are not giving Israel any more military equipment or supplies because they are plausibly committing genocide. Now, it's funny because that was a ruling that came down in March. We are in September, and now they're acknowledging it. This is an indication to me that something is getting ready to come from ICJ, and they're trying to, I guess, keep their hands out of as much of it as they can. I don't know. I mean, a lot of the other countries already backed out after the ICJ ruling. Us, Great Britain, Germany, I think there was a couple other countries were still full on board with helping Netanyahu commit his genocide. But it's interesting that Great Britain has completely backed out now, because that was our ally, our greatest strength ally. And then in this Israel is collapsing, this is something that the Israeli generals have been saying now for about a month. Their economy has crashed by 60%. So I'm just letting you know all of this because our fall from grace is tied into what our military has done, and that is from the Anna Aries fixed star that is conjunct our AC. I know I didn't really talk about it, but it is also falling from grace. And the one thing my guides have said for 10 months now was that the military was collapsing. And I have been seeing a lot of telltale signs of that. I was going to make some videos, and then I thought, no, because no one's going to really give a shit. So I didn't make them. But there's enough evidence out there that you will see that there's manufacturing problems going on. With the metal, the steel, with components. Um, the F-35 program, Gates did um, this spring, I think it was before the summer break, Gates interviewed in the House Austin. Well, it wasn't interviewed, it was interrogated him, I guess is the word I want, in a House meeting, and which he was specifically asking Austin about the F-35 program. And it will blow your socks off. All you have to do is go type in Matt Gates, Austin F-35 program. That happened, I was thinking it was April or May. And the F-35 program is completely out of control on the cost evaluations. I mean, it's all encompassing of everything, you guys. It's everything is coming to a crashing head. I just want you to be aware that this lunar eclipse energy has already started. So I think it's going to keep getting stronger and more is going to come out. Blessings, and I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week.